What gets people reacting negatively more than anything in society today? I mean, there's a couple things you could say. A couple obvious ones. Politics. It's all politics. But one big one that I want to talk about is looking at the concept of masculine, feminine, outside of this traditional viewpoint that we've been taught to view it. Mostly due to the narrative that is pushed about, again, the two sides I talked about yesterday fighting each other. You have people saying men and women are the same. You have the people saying men and women are different. But there's kind of half truths in each one. I think that connects back to the fact that, we all connect to the same spiritual source consciousness. But these ideas do go much deeper than the mainstream would have you believe. The first fact that you need to accept if you're to understand or be on my page at all is the concept of polarities. Okay, and so this isn't a statement about how different men and women are. It's simply a statement of the fact that any given person could exist on either end of that spectrum of masculinity, femininity, yin, yang, and there's other terms that people use to describe this polarity to the universe, law of attraction. And I don't like working necessarily within this idea of law of attraction, but I think that because so many people are caught up in the traditional narrative, I think it's important to put a baseline on it so that people can better look at themselves and maybe look at what their natural polarities are, or to find a polarity that fits for them. However you want to describe it, it's about finding what works for you, creating your reality rather than having some outside source determine it. Okay, so let's start with femininity. I had a conversation with one of my friends not that long ago, and I had described, my idea of what femininity meant, and I still believe this. I believe it's this connection to living in the moment, this connection to flow, a very sacred force that we all need some of in our life, or maybe more of it than we need masculinity in some people. Again, it's people have different places that they want to sit on the spectrum. Then you have masculine, and these are very broad, okay? So it's just very broad. Masculinity representing more of this desire, this desire to create, this, living in the moment with the femininity, the flow is about being at peace with no matter what. I had a terrible day in the market today. Man, I lost a lot of money, more than I care to admit. But I'm in the flow. I'm chilling. I don't care. That's my femininity flowing through and saying, okay, step back. You're okay. Well, the masculine side is saying, hey, time to go. Let's go. Let's get shit done. And so you have these forces, and these are the general descriptions of them. Now, in my opinion, an optimal life, you can't disregard one of them. Okay? You can't just say, oh, I'm a masculine, I'm a feminine. You have to have some sort of balance between these things. What your balance is, I don't know. I mean, that's for you to describe, to ascribe. But now let's move into some examples as to how understanding this is going to help you move forward and make money, be happy, all these things that I've described that I want to help by doing this video blog. Okay, and so let's start with what I was just describing. I'm a market guy. If I have a bad day, if I'm too reactionary, that's going to impact my decision making in the future. if I refuse to be at peace, I'm probably going to make some bad decisions. However, if I just do nothing and just sit back and say, oh, just go with the flow, that's not going to help me either. So I have to have both these forces at play in order to succeed. Now, let's say you are a soldier, there's certainly definitely a flow element, but you got to understand that, this is very, very intense. Maybe you need a little bit more of that masculine side of things in order to succeed in that kind of area. And then, of course, you have a profession like nursing, where you probably need a little more femininity, to effectively perform that job, to connect with other people. And so I think the traditional societal viewpoint, well, I do think that the objective is to make men and women the same. I think that they, and by they I mean the powers that be, and by the powers that be I mean the banks at the core, but again, this trickles down into everything. They want to create a de-individualized society. And individualism is something that I need to cover in another video because it's too big of a topic to cover here. But I want to, start it here. You can reference my last video where I talk about source consciousness, understanding that we're all part of the same source, but also maintaining this individuality to a certain extent. So they want to destroy individuality in order to create equality. And of course, if everybody's the same, that's not a world I want to live in. Now, maybe that's a world you want to live in, and if that's the reality you want, work towards that, and you will get there. I do promise you that. I believe that we create our own realities through pretty weird mechanisms. And again, that's a whole nother video that I could do. But back to the point. They want to create men and women being the same. And so by disregarding the fact of polarities, it makes it a lot easier for people to ascribe these noticeable differences. And, these differences are another whole other thing, because where do the differences come from? Are they cultural, or are they genetic, or are they both? And maybe I can talk about that at some point too. But they want you to not know who you are at the end of the day, and understanding that there is a masculine and a feminine is part of understanding who you are. Now, let's get into how to really find what balance that you want in your life. It starts with knowing where you are on the physical, and that's a controversial thing because I do believe there are some innate differences between men and women. The emotional level, where you can have differences no matter who you are, and the spiritual level, where you can have differences no matter where you are. And so, especially on the emotional and spiritual levels, you can see a man and a man get together because they each have different polarities on these levels, and that's why they end up fitting together pretty well. And I think that's part of the reason you traditionally see men and women getting together, is because normally their polarities end up being matched better than those of the same sex, as a general rule. But again, it's something that you need to find for yourself. And one more thing that I want to mention is directing your energy. You don't need to define yourself completely based off these polarities and say, hey, this is my polarity, I'm sticking right here. You'll want to continually grow, and optimally you'd have both levels fully developed. And the reason that you want both levels fully developed is so that you can use one at any time in any way. You can apply yourself exactly as, not not necessarily needed, although I like that kind of word, but as you desire in every situation. And having that ability is ultimately an incredible tool for healing relationships, creating connections, being at peace with yourself, and a lot of other things. So to wrap this up, you understand, you understand, and meditate on this. Sit down for a second and think about this. Say, is there any truth to what I'm saying? Is it real at all? I mean, do polarities exist? Maybe look it up on the internet, see what you can find, although the internet is a sea of disinformation, so you got to be very careful where you're looking and who you're listening to. I recommend finding mentors. Don't find one article or something. Find someone that you trust to give you information that you can interpret with a healthy mind. Because even, you can have a good interaction with negative information if you interpret it with a healthy mind, but it's always better to just have two healthy things come together and have that be the outcome. So you use these polarities to understand what you really are, and then once you really understand what you are and what you desire, you use that energy to produce literally whatever you want in life. Relationships, but also money. A lot of people think that, oh, well, I'm an artist. I can't succeed in the world. There's not enough of a market for it. That itself is just defeatist. If you're a defeatist, you're never going to make it. You have to have confidence in yourself, and you have to know, what you're doing. And so a lot of time what you see is kids say, okay, well, I really like art, but I'm not going to make it. So I'll just work a cheap minimum wage job, smoke weed all day. And, maybe I'll make art once in a while and say, oh, I'm an artist, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're not really committed to it. And so you need to commit to who you are. If you're not committed to it, you're just going to sit in this limbo for eternity, and you're never going to get anywhere. So make that decision today. That's what I say. And I'll see you next video. Please like and subscribe.